Councillor Robinson, we're now live on YouTube.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the July Rushcliffe Borough Council Cabinet meeting. Could I have apologies for absence, please?
There are no apologies for absence this evening.
Any declarations of interest? No. Thank you. Could I ask for a mover of the minutes of the meeting on the 8th of June 2021, please? Thanks, Edwin.
I'd like to propose that we accept the minutes.
Could I have a seconder, please?
I'm happy to second it.
Councillor Moore to second those minutes. All those in favour to accept those minutes? I'll abstain on that one because I wasn't there. So. Okay, do we have any citizens' questions, Mr. Rini?
No citizens' questions this evening.
Okay, we come to item 6, which is the group leaders' questions. I believe we have 2 questions have been received. Could I ask Councillor Walker, please, to get in the very special chair? It's not electric, I promise. Okay, would you like to ask your question, Councillor Walker?
I think that's worked. Yep, can you hear
Fine,
me?
that's on, yeah.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to ask this question, actually, because I know it was delayed after what was a particularly difficult day for our family. So really appreciate the opportunity. Point 714 of the officer's report states, if the operator is unable to retain memberships through lack of group exercise offerings, or is unable to generate income from the maximization of the assets, they're likely to seek a review of the contract management fee or to look to the local authority to support their losses in other ways. How will the council ensure that it protects taxpayers' money in its negotiations with the operator during the transition phase following the opening up after COVID? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you. Just to be sure, this is relating to the bowls issue in the facilities paper. Thank you. Well, it's my hope and belief that the recommendation in the paper will be approved tonight. And the issues that you raise in your question really only come into play if it isn't approved. However, I'm happy to address them. Approving the recommendation in tonight's paper will in itself mitigate the need for any lengthy negotiations or transition period, enabling changes to the Bowls Hall to be made swiftly and at a relatively modest cost. It will quickly generate activities that will mean gym membership will hold up and therefore no further changes to the leisure contract would be necessary. However, by way of assurance and in the event that the recommendation is not approved this evening, the council has a robust contract management framework in place, and this has been augmented during the pandemic by moving to an open book arrangement whereby the council reviews information on usage and financial performance on a monthly basis with the operator. We've worked with Parkwood to critically review and challenge its recovery plan and its forecasting to ensure that it is best value for the taxpayer, and that's being achieved from both a leisure delivery and a financial perspective. We've also utilised support offered by the government via Sport England to provide an external assessment of the Parkwood recovery plan, which has helped to provide further assurance that we are getting good value for the taxpayers' money. These arrangements will continue during the transition and recovery period and will flow into new contractual terms as reported to the Cabinet in January 2021, which again have been subject of robust negotiations and demonstrates how we're constantly working to ensure best value for money with our leisure operator. Public leisure services, as we know, have faced significant financial and operational challenges as a result of the pandemic, causing in some areas unprecedented damage to local facilities. The Local Government Association and UK Active continue to urge government to provide additional short and long-term support to the sector. Rushcliffe has not been immune to these pressures, and we're working very hard to continue to deliver our leisure strategy ambitions and to protect taxpayers' money.
Councillor Walker, do you have a supplementary question you'd like to ask?
Yes, thanks. I was just wondering if the losses mentioned in the point, are they going to be actual losses or projected losses? Thank you.
The point that you refer to in the financial sector of the paper is the consequences that may arise if the mitigating factors don't take place. So it's my contention that if we approve the process, the recommendation at this meeting this evening, those issues will not come to pass.
Okay. Councillor Jones. Okay, if you'd like to ask your question, then Councillor Jones.
Thank you. But my question also relates to the bowling item and the facilities. And thank you for allowing me to ask the question. How is it that the other centres listed in the report can provide bowling facilities when, despite its large number of residents over retirement age, Rushcliffe has failed and plans to waste its investment in the bowling facility?
Councillor Brennan.
Thank you. Firstly, I don't think we can necessarily draw the conclusion that because Rushcliffe has a large number of residents over retirement age, that they necessarily wish to take part in indoor bowling. In fact, the decreasing numbers of members of the Indoors Bowls Club are set out in the paper on the agenda later tonight, and they appear to show quite the opposite. That despite large numbers of retired people in the borough, the Bowls Club cannot retain or attract new members. I would also contest that the money invested in the bowls arena has been wasted to date, as you've put it in your question, as the members of the club have continued to benefit from this facility over a number of years. The recommendation before Cabinet tonight is to ensure that the facility better aligns to the Council's leisure strategy and offers greater value for money for the borough's residents by ensuring that that facility is used more often and by all age groups. Concerns over usage levels of the bowling facility were first expressed back in the May 2014 Cabinet paper, which recognised even then that membership was declining, usage was declining, and that an alternative use for the space may be required at some point. I think while it's fair to say that COVID may have brought that difficult decision forward, it's certainly not one that's come out of the blue. Despite our very best efforts to support the club to increase membership, regrettably, it's not been able to do so, and we would be negligent in our obligations to the wider community if we did not consider alternative usage strategies. The other local facilities referred to operate on different business models, and as such, it's not possible to draw a direct comparison between those facilities and ours. For example, the others are in general purpose-built indoor bowls facilities that are fully utilised with leagues and competitions all year round. Whereas in Rushcliffe, many bowlers prefer to switch to the outdoor version of the sport in the summer months, leaving the hall here unused during that period. In addition, feedback from Rushcliffe Indoor Bowls Club committee members is that other venues also provide more attractive aspects for the social side of the sport, as they provide on-site facilities such as a bar, extensive catering provision and spectator viewing areas.
Councillor Jones, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, thank you, and thanks for the full answer. It occurs to me that, and it's the impression by the remaining members of the Bowls Club, I think, that provision of leisure services for people who have got limited mobility by reason of advanced age or mental or physical disability. And it raises a question about the monitoring of the arena services under the council's equality policy, and whether the full range of the population is served by the leisure services. I don't know whether you can answer that or whether you just leave that. I leave that. Right.
So what is the question? Does our leisure strategy support all age?
The equalities policy.
The equalities policy.
Is it monitored such that people who are disadvantaged by advanced age or mobility for reasons of physical or mental disability?
I'm happy to address that.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a supplementary, I think it's a new question, but I'm happy to have a go.
Well,
We have had an equalities impact assessment done on this decision, as you would expect, and it's very thorough. And as the paper indicates later, one of the key recommendations is that officers work with the operator to ensure that if we can't provide bowling, if the decision tonight is taken to do that, that we will look at alternative activities and exercise classes and so on that are more suitable for people that are challenged either by age or disability or other issues that prevent them from taking part in mainstream sporting activities. So that is one of the recommendations tonight. And if agreed, it will continue to be a priority here, even if it's not in the form of indoor bowling.
Thank you, Councillor May.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Okay, if we could move on then to item 6 on the agenda, we have the financial outturn for 2021. Councillor Moore.
Yes, as you've just said, Councillor Robinson, this is the end of year financial outturn for the last financial year. And as I've been pointing out throughout the year, this has been a most unusual and challenging year for everyone due to the impact of COVID. I think I've made that point on several occasions over the last 12 months. I said to Peter Linfield the other day that this has probably been the most unusual year of his career so far in terms of the financial side of local authorities. We have experienced lost income, increased expenditure, additional grant support income, and the impact of various business rate reliefs. Table 2 highlights the main items impacting on the revenue budgets, and they have been reported on, and I've reported on them throughout the year. But the main cost, again, I'll remind everybody, being the £1.2 million support to our leisure facilities. Table 1 shows a significantly increased net transfer to reserves. It does look rather healthy, £7.3 million. However, £5.9 million of this will be required to fund the business rates deficit over the next few years. And this has been dealt with by the creation of a collection fund reserve, which will release this money over the next 2 to 3 years. There have also been a number of carry forward requests from last year, totaling £910,000. The largest of these are the Ed Walton Golf Club feasibility report, the Development Corporation, refuse collection, and a contingency to cover any cost of pay rises. The report also highlights, and I say I've mentioned this throughout the year, highlights the unique effect of COVID following government-led initiatives that this authority has had to deliver. Table 3 shows £11.1 million of business rates relief for 926 businesses. Table 4 shows the array of grant schemes with 30.8 million of grants paid to support local businesses. And finally, Table 5 shows £58,000 for 121 test and trace payments to support the more financially vulnerable in the community who had to isolate as a result of COVID. This has created a huge amount of work. As I've said before, the council's overall reserve situation is shown, but it looks quite healthy. But what this year has highlighted to me, and I know to Peter and the finance team, is that sufficient reserves are required to ensure financial resilience. Who knows what's going to happen next? And as I say, while this overall reserve position has increased significantly, it's pleasing also to note that the new homes bonus has now increased by £1.2 million, which, as you know, is committed to support capital schemes, for example, the arena. And obviously this has come from our increased housing growth. Regarding the council's capital position, there is 6.8 million of underspend brought forward, and the individual reasons for this are highlighted in Appendix C. The Westbridge for special expenses again is considered in Appendix D, and the deficit due to loss of income caused by COVID will be covered by a loan. This will be reported to the West Bridgford Special Expense and SIL Group. To sum up, this is a very detailed report, more detailed than usual due to the financial implications of COVID. The council's reserves does to a degree protect us from future financial shocks. However, I'm quite sure there are further shocks out there, but I believe we're in good position to deal with them. I would like to take this opportunity personally to thank all our staff for continuing to deliver such good service to our residents in such difficult time. And to Peter and his team, I'd like them particularly, thank them particularly for dealing with a significant extra workload during this time and still balancing the books, increasing our reserves and progressing our ambitious capital projects. I therefore move the recommendations. I'll just read them out in. It's recommended we note the 2021 revenue position and efficiencies identified, the COVID-related variances, and approve the carry forwards in table 6. B, we approve the associated changes to the earmarked reserves as set out in Appendix B, including the newly created collection fund reserve as stated in paragraph 4.2. We note the reprofile position on capital, and we approve the carry forwards outlined in Appendix C. And we note the update of the special expense outturn and the loan position at Appendix 4.13 and Appendix D. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Do I have a second, please? Councillor Edderby.
Thank you. As Councillor Moore says, the report is very different to our normal financial outturn due to the impact of COVID-19. And I too think that we should thank all of our staff, but particularly Peter Linfield and his team, who've worked extremely hard this year. And it's heartening to see elsewhere that we've been among the best in the country in delivering help to our businesses and residents throughout the pandemic. Councillor Moore referred to table 2, and I'd like to add to his comments by highlighting a couple of things that he's missed in terms of some of our lost income. Out of a shortfall in income of £820,000, the biggest loss was £360,000 shortfall in car parking fees, with car parking charges. And basically this is down to the fact that during the pandemic, we've either had free car parking or modified charging throughout. And the reason for doing that was, again, to support our businesses and high streets whenever it was appropriate and possible. I'd also like to highlight the fact that there's a very small shortfall from our property investments, and it's less than £100,000. And again, I think our property team, I know, have worked really closely with our tenants throughout the pandemic to minimise disruption and offer support in these difficult times. So the fact that that shortfall is so small is quite heartening. It is actually very heartening to know that despite all the pressures of the pandemic, we can demonstrate through this report that we have continued to maintain financial resilience. And I've therefore second the recommendation set out by Councillor Moore.
Thank you very much indeed. Any other comments on these financial outturn at all? I think I'd just like to echo what Councillor Moore and Councillor Edderby have just said about the complexities that we've faced over these last 18 months and the incredible resilience that the organisation has had to share with this. And big thank you to Peter and the team for the huge challenges they've had to undertake this. I think it's fair to say that these will continue. The seismic shocks of the pandemic are going to continue, and we've got things like the waste bill going through Parliament and everything else that are going to have significant impacts on our finances going forward, as we've discussed earlier this week. So I'm afraid this is probably going to be the norm now. We're going to see quite a lot of uniqueness around our accounts and the challenges going forward. But it's something that we're definitely up for, and our residents know that we're going to actually serve their very best interests. I think what's worth mentioning that we came into this pandemic with a very, very healthy set of accounts and finances. I think that has really, really paid us back in good stead in our resilience. As we've mentioned there's been huge impacts on our revenues. Some of them we balanced, so particularly like the car parking to the one that was really interested. We've got to get businesses going back. So it wasn't just a case of just giving money out. It was also a case of creating better conditions for them. I know we're going to continue, for instance, some of those parking changes until September. And we'll keep reviewing it because we know that we've got to get the economy back right across the borough, right across all sectors to make sure they are prospering, they are coming back, we're generating jobs, and we can really come out of this very strong. Again, in terms of our own financial asset portfolio, as has been mentioned, I think it's come through very, very well. Again, that's a really good balance and decisions we took some years ago to make sure we had that balance. Obviously, we didn't forecast a pandemic, but we always knew that there had to be a lot of resilience across that, and with the risk management on there. And so these will be looked at in detail at corporate governance in September. Is that correct? The accounts. These will be going there.
Well, there's two reviews. This outturn report itself will be going to corporate overview group
Yep.
shortly in July, but the actual statement of accounts that goes to governance in September.
Yeah, sorry, yes, that's right. Just say then, obviously that's cross party as well, so everybody have a chance to go right across all political persuasions just to analyse those and look at those in some detail. If there's any other comments at all? That's fine, thank you very much. So proposed by Councillor Moore, the recommendations that were set out there on page 9, section 2, A, B, C, D, seconded by Councillor Edivine. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, item 7 is the Rushcliffe Arena Facilities Review. Councillor Brennan.
Thank you. Okay, the COVID pandemic has had a devastating impact on the leisure industry. We've worked closely with our leisure providers throughout the last year and a half to support them through periods of closure and severely curtailed opening due to national restrictions. This last year has been extremely challenging, and we now face a number of difficult decisions in order to support our leisure operators going forward and to maintain a viable facility for the widest possible cross-section of our residents in support of the aspirations set out in our leisure strategy. If Cabinet members will indulge me, my report tonight is a little longer than usual, as I want to make sure that any decision taken is supported fully by the relevant information, and that is also clear to those listening in, members of the public who may have an interest in this. The report presents the declining usage of the indoor bowls facility here at the arena and considers alternative options for use of the space, which is currently significantly underutilised in comparison with other facilities such as the sports hall, and which is largely dormant for approximately 1/3 of the year. As the table on page 46 shows, in the year preceding the pandemic, there were 4,889 visits to the bowls hall. This compares to 21,515 sporting activities in the sports hall and 40,301 exercise classes attended. Despite the best efforts of the Bowls Club, Lex Leisure and the Council Sports Development Officer, membership has continued to decline. The club, unlike other similar independent sports clubs, has received significant administrative support on finance, governance and safeguarding matters, and ongoing support through investment and marketing in an attempt to encourage and increase club membership. As the table on page 46 also shows, usage has declined between the first quarter of 2018 and the first quarter of 2020 by just under 1,000, which constitutes a drop of 1/3. And between the last quarter of 2017 and of 2019, there is a drop of 392 users, almost 1/5. There's a clear and continuous downward trend. Club membership has also dropped from 377 members in 2009 to 169 for the 2019 and 20 season. To support the return of a financially sustainable leisure offer post-pandemic, it's critically important that gym membership is retained, as this forms the bulk of the operator's income, and the details are set out in paragraph 4.7. Maintaining a large, underutilised resource is no longer viable, and a decision must now be made on the future of the Bowls Hall in order to support the arena and continue to deliver our leisure strategy vision of supporting the widest number of residents to adopt an active lifestyle. A number of options has been considered, and these are set out at paragraph 5. Retention of gym memberships is closely linked to group exercise, and the balanced consideration has been taken between the need to maintain that gym membership, financial viability, diversifying the use of an underutilised space to enable a multi-use, multi-user facility offering activities suitable for the widest range of Rushcliffe residents, and the extent of the financial investment needed for us to deliver this. Paragraph 5.1.3 sets out the preferred option and best strikes this balance, proposing a simple conversion that will enable group exercise and other sporting and non-sporting events to take place in the space, replacing the existing bowls flooring with a suitable, cleansable, fitness standard floor. It can also be delivered relatively quickly, supporting the leisure provider to recover from the pandemic losses and return to a sound financial footing at the earliest possible opportunity, and encouraging the return of existing users and the attraction of new users to a safe, clean space for activity. The cost of this conversion is anticipated to be around £60,000, and the budget impact of this is set out in paragraph 7.1. In carrying out this exercise, we have been left in no doubt as to the strength of feeling of some members of the Bowls Club. And whilst for many there's been an acceptance of the situation we find ourselves in, albeit reluctantly, for others the decision to close the hall, if that's what's agreed this evening, is extremely unwelcome, and we recognise that. If the decision to close the hall is approved, we will continue working with the Bowls Club, as I mentioned in my previous answer, to support members to transfer to new clubs if they wish. There are 5 other facilities within approximate 30-minute drive time of the borough, and we'll continue to work with the leisure operator to offer alternative activities at the arena, such as short mat bowls, indoor walking, cricket or football, and lower impact exercise classes suitable for the older age groups who form the majority of the Bowls Hall users. COVID-19 has forced upon us many difficult decisions. However, it is vital that we do take those decisions to ensure that we continue to offer superb quality leisure facilities in the borough that are financially sustainable and which provide great sporting and exercise activities across all our communities. I'm therefore moving the recommendation for Cabinet to approve as set out in paragraph 2, to approve the closure of the current indoor bowls facility, approve its conversion to a multifunctional sports event space at a cost of £60,000, and support officers to work with the Bowls Club and Let's Leisure to mitigate the loss of our current facility by the introduction of alternative and appropriate activities for this demographic at the arena. Thank you.
To have a second there, please. Councillor English.
Thank you. Well, having worked in leisure centre management, I do realise and understand the need to re-evaluate the use of all facilities against demand, sustainability and changes in leisure and sporting traits. We need to recognise that Rushcliffe Borough Council is a council that strives to deliver its leisure strategy in delivering the best facilities possible, as can be seen in this building and the commencement of the fantastic new leisure centre in Bingham, which replaces the old and the failing ones, as was also the case in East Leek. It is very sad, despite several years of support and the best efforts from Rushcliffe Borough Council, Parkwood Leisure and others, in attempting to boost the Bowls Club membership, but that usage of the indoor bowl facility keeps falling and is diminished to such a level that a vast space stands empty for several months of the year, as Councillor Brennan has detailed. This just cannot be acceptable. We're obliged as a public service to call a review. We must be pragmatic. There is never going to be a situation that pleases everyone. It would be absolutely fantastic to have the funds, the space and the facilities to cater for everyone's sport and leisure interests, but that is not the case. I understand the local wane is reflected nationally in the decline of indoor bowls participation. This is not a recent concern. When I quote from the May 2014 Cabinet report, if current trends continue, there is a strong possibility that in the medium and long term, bowling will cease to be viable and the council will need to utilise the space provided for alternate purposes. It's 7 years on from there, and we're now at that point. We are faced with a very underused facility, which is currently catering to the needs of a much greater and wider section of the community. This report has evaluated the facts and it is clear from the consultations, its findings and its conclusions to why the recommendations have been made. It has looked at the alternatives and sought the advice from Sport England and the English Indoor Bowls Association, who recognise the availability of other nearby centres that are considered within a reasonable travelling distance for members to continue participating and enjoying their sport, and has and is offering sustained support to those members. The proposals will provide a facility appealing and delivering activities to a greater demographic of users, which does include Bowls Club members to engage in. I do hold great sympathy to the unwelcome proposed changes for club members and the negative impact it may have on some. But I do consider the report speaks for itself in the reasoning and the factors the recommendations being made. So I will second those in item 2, A, B and C for the greater benefit of the wider community.
Thank you, councillor. Any comments, councillor?
Yeah, I suppose I'd just really add to that. Obviously we all share the disappointment that the Bowls Club must be feeling, but yeah, the evidence is very clear. We have given them an awful lot of support. And yeah, we talked about the other facilities that were within reach. And, after I'd read the paper, I looked at some of those other facilities, and one of the ones that's mentioned is the one in Charnwood in Loughborough. And of course, we've got residents in Eastleigh and Sutton Bonington, and they naturally gravitate towards Charnwood because Loughborough is their nearest town. And they still have, obviously they're not playing at the moment, but they still have 500 members in their indoor bowls club. So we have given an awful lot of support to the bowls club. And other clubs have maintained their membership, and for some reason we haven't here. And we are looking to make sure that we can offer alternative forms of exercise to that particular demographic. So I think it's a very thorough review, and we do need to approve it and move forward and get a wider benefit.
Thank you. I think I had the pleasure to sit on the working group which actually helped design this whole facility a number of years ago. It cost us around £16 million, I think, wasn't it, somewhere like that. And one of the key focuses of that working group was to make sure that we optimised the usage and the viability of this incredible facility. And every square foot of this whole building is tested and reviewed to make sure it meets that criteria. And the Bowls facilities is no different. And unfortunately, as a council, sometimes we have to make very, very tough decisions. We make nice decisions like building new facilities that we're doing, such as the new leisure centre in Bingham. But we do have to analyse all our assets. And as I say, looking at the usage of the Bowls facility, which Councillor Brennan and Councillor English have put over very well. The thing that really struck me with this is that performance of the year, the facility is not used. So for a third of the year, we have an empty facility. I think there's also a positive of that because we also have a very healthy outdoor bowling population right across Rushcliffe, and you'll see many of our villages and many of our towns still very prosperous outdoor bowls facilities. And of course, many members actually use that, hence why those 4 months, quite rightly, they want to be in the sunshine. Who wouldn't be? But it does unfortunately reflect on the usage here in that, as the table says, and by all measures, you look at that table and you see the usage is just really not going in the right direction. I also want to emphasise the amount of support and thank officers for how much time has been put on to help the club, to help members to try every way in which to make that club more sustainable, make more usage going through the bowls there, because one of our strap line is great sport, and it's sport for everybody, whether you're young, whether you're old, whether you're male, whether you're a female, of all sexes and all abilities and everything else. And we had a question earlier from Councillor Jones. We talked about our equalities policy and everything else, and we're very proud that all our facilities are available to everybody. And we do have a huge challenge because as we come out of this pandemic, we have such a wonderful asset here. And I say the demand for exercise classes of all ages, and again, this is not just about young people, it's about the more mature people. Those exercise facilities are incredibly important with the emphasis on health. And I think this option, which has been proposed, will give that there. And I want to see officers working hard with our teams to look at how we can help not only mitigate bowls, the sport itself, other venues, and whether the short bowls is viable as well, but also other activities that more mature people can actually involve themselves with. Well, also, we should never forget the very, very healthy bowling population we have outdoors. And I think that is a real credit to the many bowling clubs who not only provide bowls, provide a very active social life for people as well. And I think, again, that is one of the assets of the private clubs that are out there. But yeah, just to summarize, I think this is a very tough decision. We're not about closing facilities. We're not about stopping sports and things. We're very much about ambition and providing the very best facilities we can. But sometimes we have to make those tough decisions. We have to turn the ship in other directions and reflect that. And I think all of us feel that. And we want to make sure that we do everything we can to make sure that we give the best sort of mitigation we possibly can as a council. So any other comments at all? No. Okay, so the recommendations that were set out on page 43, item 2, ABC by Councillor Brennan, seconded by Councillor English. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to the next item, which is the COVID-19 update report, which I will be giving this evening. So this is a report that I give on a regular basis, reflecting the pandemic and the very unique challenges that it actually puts on this council. Whenever I do this report, I'd just like to remind people of the timelines that are set out on page, so look, 58, 4.3, to remind ourselves just of those key milestones. That the 17th of May, the government announced some various lifting of restrictions, including allowing up to 30 people attending weddings, the organisation of adult sport and exercise classes to resume indoors, and saunas and steam rooms may reopen. Some outdoor entertainment reopening, such as cinemas and performances. And of course, 21st of June, allowing weddings and wakes going ahead with more than 30 guests, providing social distancing, and also the pilot events, such as Euro 2020, although that was a great success, was it? But there we go, we'll move on from there. And then, of course, 19th of July, since this report was actually written, we've seen the government now have reaffirmed yesterday, and I'll stand be correct on this, that's correct, isn't it? That everything's going ahead on the 19th of July, and there will be the lifting of all restrictions. And very much the responsibilities will now be put on the public and businesses to make sure that they operate in a safe environment with that. So as I say, this report is really reflecting now the council's response since May 2021. We've been talking a lot in Councillor Moore's presentation of the outturn and finances about the business grants, something that we've referred to a lot in both cabinet meetings and full council here. Our high street ambassadors have been helping the public and our businesses to comply with these challenging restrictions that have been put on there. Environmental Health Department, where we've seen, unfortunately, an increase in non-compliance to COVID, and also some of their own direct business support, such as the digital grant. We had 106k, which was the Welcome Back funding, and I'm delighted that our major parish and towns, I think 6 of them, councils, have received £10,000 each from that. I look forward to seeing those councils spend that wisely and seeing very positive results from that. Leisure, of course, as we've heard again tonight, has been severely impacted, but I'm pleased to report that since the 17th of May, since the reopening, the usage has been very good across our group exercise facilities, across all of there, and also across squash, swimming and badminton as well. So that is very encouraging. I think that really is going to be on an upward slope for us. Golf has started well. Unfortunately, we had a bit of a wet May, as we know, but golf at Ed Walton, again, has shown very encouraging numbers as people want to get out there and play. And I'm sure that we'll see that again increasing over the next few months. Just talking about some of the grants, and just to highlight some of these, is the 23,800 that was set by the DWP. We're assisting our communities, food parcels, with supplies, etc. 37k was geared towards education, particularly to the 5 to 16-year-olds, in terms of helping them in terms of their well-being on there. Since November 20, we've made over 6,500 payments with £19.1 million of government funding. And as I say, as Councillor Moore talked about how we've transitioned that to businesses very effectively, very efficiently. And again, a real big thanks to Peter and his team who've expedited those grants so well. We're currently focused on the 400k hospitality grants, which are going out there, with 6k per business. So hopefully that will give certainly a boost at a very important time to them. In terms of item 4.11, this details the council's own position in terms of the effect of the pandemic, and there's been very little change there since May 2021. In terms of events, as we say now, with the change of restrictions, unfortunately it came a little bit too late for us, the proms in the park. We've now moved that to September. But we have the outdoor theatre in August and the cinemas in August and September. So looking forward to see people getting out there, enjoying themselves exactly where they should actually be. And also using, just having obviously be the Welcome Back Fund that I mentioned, the £10,000 that's gone to the town and parish councils, the big six across the borough. Just on the track and trace, Gamston Vaccination Centre has vaccinated over 50,000 people. Tilkiston continues to go very strong. We actually did close the testing centre here at the arena. The usage was going down quite considerably, but we also needed the car parking space for the leisure centre. But we've hosting now mobile testing both at Cotgrave and in Bingham, which again is going very well indeed. In terms of some more of the sort of support for our individuals in our communities, one is the isolation scheme, which is the £500, which has been extended now to parents and guardians of children who have to isolate and are on low incomes. We know how financially difficult and challenging that's been, so it's good to see that £500 is going out there. There's been 348 applications with 122 paid out to that. So finally, on this paper is, of course, we need to keep an eye on our business as normal, as I call it. So this is our service levels right across the authority. So in section 4.2, it notes the council service performance. And of course, that is monitored very closely by our scrutiny groups, the corporate overview group, which uses a large suite of indicators to actually make sure that we don't just become solely focused on the pandemic, and that we are giving that service right across our departments and to our residents there. So this is a report that I put before you tonight. I would like to move that recommendation set out on page 57, item 2. Do I have a second for that? Councillor Ethering.
Yes, thank you. There's very little I can add to your very comprehensive review of everything that we've done during COVID and the update. But it is important that we continue to monitor and respond to the impact of the pandemic. And as the Prime Minister said yesterday, this is not the end of COVID, just because July the 19th comes along. But so far, at least, the vaccination appears to be working in breaking the link between infection and serious illness. And let's hope that that continues. I think it's fair to say that nearly all of us want to get back to as normal a life as possible. But we do need to remember that at the same time, we should be cautious and careful in protecting the more vulnerable in society. But I certainly second the recommendation.
Thank you. Any other comments still? Councillor Moore.
Just make one quick comment. Around about a year ago, 18 months ago, when you started reporting on this, I was getting a bit worried about the state of the economy in Rushcliffe, and I looked around Central Avenue and West Bridgeford and got a little bit concerned, the number of empty businesses. But if you look around now, I don't think there's one empty business. I think that people are now saying Rushcliffe is a great place to come and invest. Let's open a new restaurant. The place is busy. I mean, we've started eating out a lot more, and the restaurants are busy. Some of the restaurant owners I talked to are incredibly grateful for the fact that we got grants out to them. And they've actually said to me, Gordon, we want to survive without it. We're incredibly grateful to Rushcliffe, because a couple of restaurants I go to have got restaurants in other parts of Nottinghamshire, and I haven't been so speedy getting the grants out. We've got the furlough coming back now. It's cutting itself back down. We're being released. Let's hope and pray that there's not going to be another outbreak of another variant. But I am quite optimistic about the future in Rushcliffe, and I think that the amount of work that's been done and carried out, as I've said before, by the staff in the borough has helped the economy and helped Rushcliffe to move forward.
Yeah, it's very timely. This morning I spent some time with a business at one of our own facilities in Cotgrave that Elise offers, and they're a group of businesses in recruitment and logistics, and they're recruiting, and businesses absolutely going through the floor. They provide logistics for a lot of websites. They employ a lot of people in Rushcliffe. As I say, they're actually based in our Collier Business Park. And he's very optimistic, and he's seen a real big change over the last few months. So it's really good news and very heartening to see. And he's out there recruiting, same challenges, trying to drivers, etc., as we've seen there. But he says an economy, and big thank you again to the council for the support it's given him, and certainly the facilities there have been absolutely tremendous. So thank you, Councillor Moore. Yes, reminding me we stay with businesses, and hopefully we'll see that upturn now in jobs and prosperity as we go forward. So if we could take that to the vote then with my recommendation, seconded by Councillor Edderby. Everyone in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. That concludes the business for the cabinet meeting tonight. So